Hello everybody, this is your student Facebook meteorologist Sean Bagden here, and we are going to be doing a live stream talking about Invest 98L. This is our area of disturbed weather right now. We're looking for development into a tropical system over the next, say, 6 to 12 hours here. You can see right about in here is where our center of circulation is. You can see the clouds starting to the deeper thunderstorm activity starting to wrap around that center. Hasn't quite wrapped around to the southern end yet, which is why we are not tropical quite yet. We haven't quite gotten that closed low at the surface, but that should be happening pretty shortly. As you can clearly see, convection starting to wrap around the center now, just to the east of Cape Hatteras. And definitely starting to get a big flare-up of thunderstorms there on the east side of the low. Those should continue wrapping around. Aircraft reconnaissance team is out in the storm right now. It is currently 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can see that right here they observed, what is that? That's right around 45 knots of wind right at their flight level right now, and you can see that's where the stronger convection is, and it's starting to wrap around, but it's only half closed off right now. But once this completely closes off and we have a pretty consistent wind all the way around the center of circulation, we should be looking at a named storm here within the next 6 to 12 hours after that convection starts to wrap around the center of the storm. National Hurricane Center updated at 1:42 p.m. today to increase the odds of formation to 90% due to that observation of the increased convective activity on the eastern eye wall of this convective activity off of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina here. Currently looking at SPC mesoanalysis. Not really seeing much in the way of a deepening low, no pressure falls where this thing is heading, but we're down to 1,009 millibars according to the analysis right here, and we're going to be, the center is currently observed a little bit further east than the RAP analysis is observing it right now. It's more out over here, about 25 or 30 miles off to the east of where RAP analysis is showing it. But regardless, this thing is not going to be moving much over the next, say, 18 hours, as we have this big banana ridge of high pressure off to the north of it. You can really see it building in right here. But this is forecast to weaken, and a big hole is going to punch through this banana high just off to the north. Wherever that hole punches is where we're going to be seeing this area of low pressure, likely tropical storm, move off to the north. Looking at the steering currents, this is our 500 millibar winds aloft. Here's that area of high pressure kind of blocking it off to the north. Really weak steering flow here. That's why we're not seeing this move all that much. It's been kind of sitting there for the past couple days now. But the thing that's going to kick this thing up the coast is going to be this trough of low pressure that brought severe weather to the High Plains, Minnesota area down to Nebraska last night. This is going to translate off to the east, and as that moves to the east, it's going to give it a little more steering flow to kick it up the coastline. Depending on how negative or positive this trough is once it interacts with the system, we could be seeing it dragged into the New Jersey coastline or kicked up the coast and pretty much right over Connecticut, Massachusetts, and right up into the Connecticut River Valley there. Yeah, so those are the two tracks that ensemble members are showing right now. This right now that we are looking at is the 3K NAM, going, let's say, a day in advance right now. you can see we start seeing this trough tilt negatively as it starts to interact with this, and it starts picking it up and bringing it into the coast. I'm just not buying that right now because this trough is lagging so far behind. I don't really think the models are picking up on this well enough to really know what's going on right now in terms of that, because weak steering flow, it could really go anywhere until this trough picks it up. So that is why we're seeing the divergent solutions between going due north up through New Jersey, Philadelphia area and then getting picked up, or just getting picked up by this trough sitting off of the North Carolina coastline and then buzzing off into the Connecticut River Valley. So that is why that is happening. And then we'll go on a little bit here. We'll go on another half day. This is currently where the NAM 3K has the circulation in the morning on the 10th, so tomorrow. Then half day later, this is in the evening hours on the 10th. We see the trough of low pressure really start to pick it up, tilt negative, and really rip this thing to shreds as it goes up into the Hudson River Valley in this scenario. But definitely still a wind, coastal flooding, and flash flooding event anywhere from the Hudson Valley, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, into the Berkshires, and even the southern part of the Green Mountains, depending on track. So we're going to hop on over and get a closer look at the storm and what it's going to be doing. We're going to be hopping down to the mid-Atlantic view here. These are what we're going to be looking at here is surface winds. And current observed surface winds. We'll see how hurricane hunters are doing with observations there. Can see convective feedback here is displacing the center a little bit off to the north of where it is. This is where the actual center of circulation is, and it is a little weaker than it is observed here. But wind-wise, we're pretty spot on here. They are observing 45 knots right near the center of circulation in the thunderstorm activity on the east side, and here just off to the east side we have 45 knots of wind observed on the NAM 3K here. So model doing pretty well minus the convective feedback going on here. I believe this would be pretty good intensity wise because this looks like a 1009 millibar contour here. But as this thing starts to broaden and move off to the north, we're going to see the wind shield not really increase in intensity. It's going to stay about the same intensity, but it's going to really broaden out as it heads somewhere along the mid-Atlantic coastline here. And that's really what's going to cause a lot of coastal flooding issues here. Because you see this flow here, these wind barbs are angled right into the shoreline, into this little bowl here. That is really good at creating storm surge. Oops, there we go. And you have a pretty consistent fetch of, what is that, 30 to 35 knots of wind, just getting pushed into the shoreline here for a pretty extended period of time. I would not be surprised to see minor to moderate coastal flooding, especially here along the Jersey Shore from like Atlantic City up to Tom's Beach, especially right in the neck of the Hudson there, where you can get some contraflow with the water backing up and not being able to get released into the Atlantic Ocean. So even the Hudson could back up a little bit up towards the Poughkeepsie area. Also, a more minor coastal flooding threat will also be realized, especially along the western coast of Long Island here. But the big threat's going to be the neck of the Hudson River, with the contraflow of water there, and the Jersey shoreline, especially Atlantic City, and northward to the neck of the Hudson River there. Okay, perfect. So now, looking at rainfall, I was saying 3 to 5 inches of rainfall, especially where the heaviest bands do set up in this event here in an earlier post, and I'm still going with that as the NAM 3K is clearly showing this band of 3 to 5 inch rainfall amounts. Would not be surprised to see some of the more convective activity, especially where terrain becomes a problem, especially like Catskills and up here near northern Jersey, eastern PA here, near like Port Jervis, New York area. We could be seeing areas of upwards of 7 inches of rain. This area has been plagued with heavy rainfall and thunderstorms over the past week or so, because that upper low that's been lingering around here in the northeastern United States. This should allow for a pretty significant flash flooding threat anywhere in this corridor right here, especially up by the Catskills, where you get that valley funneling and water just having nowhere to go once it goes into the valleys, except for down the rivers, and there's going to be too much water for the rivers to be keeping up with, that is for sure, with a big area of rain like this falling in a short period of time. And as you can see why I'm worried, if this moves like 25 or 30 miles to the east with the track, we could be talking about significant rainfall in southern Vermont and the Berkshires of Massachusetts and western Connecticut there, with the same amount of rainfall. Could be looking at a very significant flooding event in those areas too if this does shift off to the east a little bit, which is certainly a possibility given the weak steering flow, giving the models a bit of a hard time. Also, there's going to be a tornado threat with this as we head into the evening hours tomorrow. What's going to be causing this tornado threat is going to be enhanced low-level flow. Enhanced low-level flow on the northeast side of this tropical system, subtropical system, whatever it's going to be when it gets up into this New Jersey area. We're going to have very strong winds going over the water, and then when it interacts with land, it's going to tend to shift the winds at a 90-degree angle to where they are aloft and slow them down, which creates a good amount of wind shear and can create embedded supercell structures in tornadoes, especially right along the coastlines. So certainly isolated tornadoes will be likely, especially in this area right here, western Connecticut, Long Island, southern Hudson River Valley, maybe up to as far north as the Poughkeepsie area. This area could definitely see a weak tornado or two, because tropical systems are notorious for tornadic weather. We'll click on a sounding here and have a look at a forecast photograph, and you can see marginal tornadoes are possible here. That's weak tornadoes. You can see this very nice looped photograph. You get that calming of winds due to the friction of land. You see only like 15 knots of wind, but then those winds are still going to be cranking as that low-level jet coming in off the ocean is unaffected by any friction of terrain. So you're seeing winds aloft cranking up to about 45 knots here, which is a pretty significant amount of shear, especially with that about 90-degree in turn of winds at the surface here. You got due easterlies at the surface, and then you start seeing almost due southerlies aloft due to that friction. You see that 90-degree turn of winds, and you can see right here you got that little bit of instability to create an updraft going here, which won't be good. Plenty of shear right here for supercell structures within some of these outer bands of this system here, and definitely enough storm relative helicity to create a tornadic problem here, especially on this northeastern eye wall of the system here. Generally look for 150 storm relative helicity values for a tornado threat, and here we're looking at the low 300s, so certainly a tornado threat in that area I was mentioning before, right here. Pretty much eastern or western Long Island, right up the Hudson River Valley, and then into western Connecticut. This is where your tornado threat is going to be maximized as of right now. This is going to be in the afternoon hours on the day tomorrow on the 10th, when this thing is making its closest pass. So watch out for heavy rains, flooding, isolated tornadoes are likely, and coastal flooding and tropical storm force winds, which is going to be the least of our worries here, as flooding is certainly the biggest threat with a slow-moving tropical cyclone interacting with mountainous terrain in New England here. Certainly already had enough of that with Irene, but here we go again. We're going to be going for round 2 of that somewhere here in western New England and eastern New York area here. So have a great day, everybody. We'll be back with another live stream if anything changes.